Hello, friends. Welcome back. This channel is dedicated to explaining narcissistic abuse with the goal to help you to break out of the narcissistic web that so many people can get stuck in for decades. So that being said, what I'm talking about today are 10 ways that covert malignant narcissists insult you and erode your self-esteem. And the reason I included so many different ways that they do this is because sometimes when a narcissist has been called out, they'll stop or seemingly stop doing one behavior, and it may look like they're changing. It might, and I stress the word might, look like they're putting forth effort to modify their behavior when in fact, all they're doing is switching tools. I was caught using that manipulation tool, so I will use this one. And so we want to really understand the ways that they do this, but I'm not going to lie. Learning these tactics, learning the tools that they use, understanding the narcissist is going to help you to understand them, but it's not going to guarantee that you break free of narcissistic relationships. If you want to know how to do that, you have to watch the end. So let's dive in. For those that don't know me, my name is Michele. I'm a certified trauma-informed recovery coach. I specialize in helping people overcome narcissistic abuse and complex PTSD. I'm also the founder of the Thriver School of Transformation, where survivors of narcissistic abuse from all over the world meet together live on Zoom. We work through the side effects of emotional trauma together. Okay, so let's dive into those 10 ways that narcissists insult and erode your self-esteem. Number one is by direct rejection. This is overt abuse, where they basically tell you that you're not good enough for them or you're less than them and everyone else they've ever known, where they literally insult you to your face. That's the easiest one to identify because it's not hidden. It's very obvious. Number two is covert insults that are disguised to help you. They insult you, but then they do it telling you that they're just telling you this. They're just telling you that you look awful and that you're less than everyone else and that you're so horrible because they care. And they're trying to help you better yourself. And the thing with this tactic is if you call them out for it and you tell them how much it's hurting you, they will pretend to be like shocked that you would think that this was something negative. They would be in shock that you don't see the value of the fact that they're trying to help you. Number three has to do with the fact that there are crimes of commission and crimes of omission. There are things that people do wrong by what they do. And then there are things that are done wrong by what they don't do. And in this case, a narcissist will insult you by acting as if they don't notice you, acting as if they don't see any of your accomplishments or anything positive that you do. And this can be seen with a significant other or with narcissistic parents that love to triangulate their children. So for example, they'll see one child gets a B- or a D on a paper, and they're praising that child if that's the golden child. The scapegoat comes home and they have an A+, and they're like valedictorian, and they're getting awards in school, and the narcissistic parent will do backflips for the golden child and will have this blank stare at the scapegoated child's achievements. It's not that they're saying anything, but it carries the same pain and it affects your self-esteem the same way. This absolute non-reaction from a narcissistic parent, especially when, because you can think, well, maybe my parent just isn't like that. But especially when they notice that for the other children, the other siblings, there is a huge reaction. And it's the same thing with the significant other. Let's say you get all beautiful for a night out with your significant other and they don't compliment you. So in the beginning, you might be like, oh, but they're just not that kind of person. But then you go out and they compliment everyone. And then they come home, they're talking to you. Did you notice so-and-so's hair? She looked so beautiful. She looked amazing, but can never say one nice word to you. It's a very covert way to insult and erode your self-esteem. Number four is through projection of their shame. Narcissists cannot tolerate shame. And so what they do is when they notice it inside of them, they will fling it onto their family members and cause you to feel bad about yourself. So they're displacing their shame onto you. And because they're so scared of feeling shame or even seeing any kind of shame inside of them, they harp on you and make you feel like you don't breathe correctly. Everything you do is wrong. Number five is through scapegoating. No matter what happens wrong, it's always your fault. If something goes wrong, it's your fault. If something goes right, even if you did it, it's because of them. And so they constantly keep themselves in this place of power, keep you feeling unworthy and a burden, and as if everything in life is your fault. And they ostracize their target as well. And again, one of the main reasons they do this is so that they don't ever have to be responsible for anything, because after all, it's all your fault. 6 is through gaslighting. This is where they insult you and erode your self-esteem all in the same breath, right? So they say something really nasty to you, and then when you call them out for it and you express that you didn't appreciate or like what they're doing or how they're treating you, they'll turn around and say they never said that, or that you twisted things, or that you just love to fight and that's why you're saying this and why you're doing this. So they're insulting you and you can't even get that validated, acknowledged. And in fact, you wind up questioning yourself at the end of it, because when they do deny it, when they say that they never said anything, they speak with such confidence that it causes you to doubt yourself. And when we doubt ourselves, our connection to self erodes, our self-esteem, our self-identity all gets weak. Number 7 is how they are always one-upping you, whether it's with them, right? You do something, but they could do it better. Yeah, you did it okay, but when they do it, everything's more amazing. Or in a family dynamics, in a narcissistic family dynamics, narcissists love to do this with outsiders or with other members of the family. And it's all with the goal to make you keep trying harder to please them. So for example, I knew in one narcissistic family, the mother would say things like, oh, my sister's kids, if she tells them to jump, they jump. They do so much for her. They are amazing. I wish I had kids like that. One-upping in between cousins. A narcissistic parent can do that, or they can do it with siblings as well. If you're in an adult relationship with a narcissist, they can do it with friends in your friend circle, with other people that you work with, but they're always comparing you and you always are on the downside. Number 8 are the famous backhanded compliments. Get all dressed up and they're like, oh, wow, that skirt actually makes you look skinny, or you actually look good today. Or you cook a meal. Wow, this actually wasn't horrible. And it's always with this implication that normally it is horrible. Normally you look horrible. So that even when you look good, or even when they are acknowledging it, because maybe they're forced to, maybe you're around people that are telling you it's a good meal, or people that are complimenting you. And so they're forced to acknowledge it, but they do so in such a way that it doesn't even feel good, because you're left thinking, oh, wow, they're making it sound like normally I'm horrible. Number 9 is when they act bored when you're speaking. So you're talking and suddenly they'll start yawning, or it's almost like they're falling asleep right before your eyes. But the second you start talking about them, they come alive. They are inadvertently trying to portray that you don't matter. In fact, all of the things that I'm mentioning, they all touch on subconscious beliefs, right? That are provoked in their targets. I don't matter. I am less than. I'm not good enough. I'm unlovable. And everything they do is constantly trying to like poke their finger in your wounds. But this is one you see a lot of, where when you have something to say, it's like this, they're in slow motion. Somebody hit like a slow motion button on them, and they only come alive when it's about them. And number 10, not that this is an all-inclusive list, but number 10 is when they give you the silent treatment. Let's say you stand firm with your boundary. Let's say you call them out for their manipulative, abusive behavior, and they have no way out of it. They will act as if you are dead. When you're in the silent treatment with somebody that you live with, a significant other or a parent, you feel like the living dead. They will not acknowledge you. And what an insult, right? It's basically saying that you're not worth my acknowledging of your existence. And when you are on the receiving end of the silent treatment and you don't understand these dynamics, again, it touches on the core wounds that are most painful for you. It is emotional torture. So when you think of all of those 10 different things, and I know in my case, sadly, the few narcissists that I had close relationships with did all 10 of them, not just one or two, did all 10 of them. And I'd be curious to know, in your case, how many were done in your experience with the narcissist? And is it any wonder? Is it any wonder that we wind up with complex PTSD after narcissistic relationships? Looking at all of those manipulation tactics, imagine, actually, we don't have to imagine. If you're watching my video, you don't have to imagine living with somebody that is doing that to you 24/7. It's no wonder our nervous system is a mess. It's no wonder we're dealing with complex trauma symptoms. And so this is where, at this point, it's not about learning more about identifying how many things they do. Like I said in the beginning, we can learn about all the things they do to manipulate, to insult, to psychologically twist you up from the inside out. We can memorize those things. We can watch these videos over and over and over again. And it doesn't mean that we're not going to fall for another narcissist, because what happens as a result of these relationships, and because most of us had these dynamics at some point in our childhood, there is an inner template that we have that is filled with subconscious limiting beliefs that actually cause us to reenact relationships with narcissists. This is where things like limerence kick on, which, by the way, that's a whole nother video. The thing with our subconscious beliefs are when we're around somebody that reminds our subconscious of maybe a caregiver that we have a relationship with that was rocky, that we never felt resolved in that relationship. Well, our subconscious mind wakes up and is like, ooh, this is similar. So this is another opportunity to get it right. And so every fiber in our body will be pushing us to try to make it work. It's also why so many of us stay in these dynamics. What are we doing when we're staying? We're trying harder. We're trying harder and harder. We're yanking our personality inside out. We're trying to get it right. We're trying to do, be, think, and feel whatever we're supposed to in order to make the relationship work. We don't realize why we're doing that, but the reality is the reason we're trying harder and harder and harder is because the narcissist puts us in a chronic fawn trauma response. So we are fawning because of the narcissistic abuse. And we're trying to fix the relationship by fawning even more. And it doesn't work. Then we get out of that relationship and we want to have healthy relationships, but we were stuck in a fawn response for so long that when we go into another relationship, it's still there. It's still on. So we can either attract narcissists on accident, because narcissists love people that fawn. Yes, please fawn, please stifle you so that you can be there for me. That's the whole underlying thing about narcissist. So if we're stuck in the fawning response, we are like a magnet to a narcissist. Then on top of it, if we're stuck in a fawn trauma response, it's difficult to have healthy relationships because healthy people have a hard time with somebody fawning. They don't want somebody to fawn. They want somebody to show up as their real self. But if we're fawning, this is the thing with fawning. We're not fawning because we like it or because it's a personality trait as much as it is a trauma response that we learned to use to keep ourselves safe. Why do we fawn with the narcissist? So that we can avoid some of their anger, right? Or we do something the narcissist doesn't like, we stop doing it. That's fawning. We are constantly stifling us to try to make them happy. The antidote to never being in another relationship with a narcissist isn't so much memorizing the narcissist as much as it is breaking out of your fawn trauma response. I read a comment in one of my videos recently, and the person put in that video, they were like, I'm so tired of it. I'm learning, and I'm still stuck in these relationships, and I'm still finding myself surrounded by these people. And again, the reason is because it's not about learning about the narcissist that helps you to break out of that. It's about uprooting what the narcissist did to your nervous system that keeps you stuck in trauma responses, stuck in limiting beliefs. When you uproot that, that's when things start to change. And guess what? That's what we do in Thriver School of Transformation. We meet every week and our focus is on putting the focus inside, seeing what's there, seeing what we can upgrade, what we can uproot from the narcissistic abuse, what we can unlearn so that we can be our best selves. And this month in July, we are doing how to stop fawning. So if this video resonates with you, then make sure you come check us out. There are 9 to 12 live meetings every month in Thriver School of Transformation, and it's only $79.99.